Vanidu Hasaranga has been absolutely brilliant.
When every team from now on who is gonna play Sri Lanka, they are gonna play Vanidu Asaranga also. They are gonna play be like Vanidu Asaranga.
Uh, I am cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to continue in the coming year as well.
Onion රසට මංචිකොමේ onion.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Around the Wickets brought to you on Sri Lanka's number one sports hub, www.thepapare.com. And here we are to wrap up and try and take a closer look at how Sri Lanka fared in the ICC World T20. We know that Sri Lanka didn't make the semi-finals as most of us wanted. But to be very honest, I think a lot of the fans in Sri Lanka must be delighted at the team's performance and the type of cricket Sri Lanka is currently playing. And to chat about Sri Lanka's performance with me is Estelle Vasudevan and Sharmeegan Sridheran. Welcome, Estelle and Sharmeegan. It's on a very very happy note that we get together to have a chat about Sri Lanka team's performance. Because to be very frank and honest, I think none of us had major hopes on Sri Lanka excelling in the Super 12 rounds, but they did perform over and above expectations of many. Estelle, if you are to take a quick summary of how Sri Lanka performed in this competition, what would you say?
Yeah, I think overall Sri Lanka can be satisfied with their performance during the tournament. 5 wins out of 8 isn't too bad. I think, particularly coming from where we did um, the last international series, we lost 3-0 to South Africa and were comprehensively beaten, I think, by 10 wickets, 9 wickets, and 28 runs, if I recall correctly. So, taking that into consideration, it was a satisfactory effort, particularly the ease with which Sri Lanka overcame the qualifiers. Um, the wins against Namibia, Ireland, and Netherlands really would have given them a lot of confidence. Then, um, the coming from a difficult situation to overcome Bangladesh as well. So, overall, a satisfactory performance. But I will say that perhaps they will be disappointed with their performances, particularly against a team like Australia. I think Australia looks good on paper, but if you've looked at the record of late, they haven't done too well recently. So that was a game Sri Lanka really could have potentially targeted. Unfortunately, maybe it's even a mental block. I don't know. When it comes to facing Australia in big tournaments, we seem to have a little bit of a problem overcoming them, and that really hit us at the wrong time in our campaign. South Africa, we really pushed. It was a game that could have gone either way. Unfortunately, it didn't go Sri Lanka's way. England as well, who've been so phenomenal throughout the tournament. Sri Lanka really pushed, and it was, I think, a combination of how good England are, as well as us Sri Lanka not executing as well as they would have liked in that chase that led to the loss. So overall, a satisfactory campaign, but of course, more things to focus on, more things to grow on and improve uh, with just 1 year to go for the next tournament.
Yes, plenty of positives to take from the Sri Lankan campaign at the World T20. Megan, when we take a look at that campaign, I think, likely as the rightfully mentioned, in the first round, at the ease of which Sri Lanka cruised through the first round was terrific to see. But most importantly, Sri Lanka chasing down that 170 against Bangladesh did give us a lot of hope that maybe, just maybe, this team might be able to do that unthinkable.
Yeah, I mean, that's where we started believing. Okay, fine. We were not just good against the smaller nations, but also that we can make a real impact in this World Cup too. And then there on, I think actually we went from strength to strength. And also mentioning Sudarshana, this was a killer group. You have to accept that compared to the other group. Here they're like white ball giants in this group, and it was every game was tough, and especially about games like England and South Africa. How we competed. We used to lose games consistently throughout the time. In the recent past, but we did not lose games like what we lost in this World Cup situation. The fight we fought. I mean, that is the sign that we could take off from this World Cup. And as Dasun Chanaka mentioned, the promises with Sri Lanka cricket, maybe they'll only get better and better from this point, and hope to see a better tournament next year.
Yes, I think that is what is spurring the Sri Lankan cricket fans on, and especially given the fact that I think this is a stat that the Papare cricket team shared on the Papare cricket Facebook as well. When you take the Super 12, when you take all the Super 12 teams and also the Test playing nations, Sri Lanka had the lowest number of average T20I caps and also the lowest average when it comes to age. The average age was 26, and also the average number of T20 caps was 16. And that is something that Sri Lanka can be very hopeful and proud of. Going forward, we will be, if we are to harness this talent, if we are to nurture this young talent, we'll be able to try and make it big in the upcoming global tournaments. Now, let's take a look at what didn't go right when it comes to when it came to the Super 12 leg of the World T20. Sri Lanka lost three games to Australia, South Africa, and England. These three games were tough ones. We knew that from the onset. And like SD, since you did talk about the Australia game, Sri Lanka did look like they were out of the fight as soon as Australia came on to bat, and that's a problem that Sri Lanka needed fixing. Do you think there was a tactical error in opting to go with a extra seamer rather than opting to go with spin bowling in that game, or what would you have done better uh, for the Sri Lankan team?
Yeah, I think I don't know if we can say that Sri Lanka should have gone with an extra spinner, particularly because at the moment the options in the team are limited, on the bench are limited. So it's a very tricky situation in terms of selection, I think, for the management as well. What they did do is they went with their best five bowlers, and I have no doubt that uh, Lahiru Kumara, Duswant Chamira, Vanidu Hasarangat, Mahish Theekshana, and Chamika Karunaratne are the best five bowlers Sri Lanka had in that squad, considering the balance of the team and how they wanted to go about things. Unfortunately, I think, like you said, um, from the moment Australia stepped onto the field with the bat. Sri Lanka seemed to be a bit out of it. I think Samika Karunaratne up till until that point had done really good job bowling the first over. I think there were a lot of questions about why, when you have two guys who can hit 150 speeds, why do you give the ball to Chamika Karunaratne coming up for the first over? But I think through the games before that, he had shown that he is able to create opportunities, and that's one of the reasons why he was trusted with that role of starting off the innings. Unfortunately, in that over, he gave away, perhaps he was trying too hard, we don't know, but he gave away a couple of loose deliveries, and that really set the tone for the Australian innings. So Aaron Finch and David Warner seem not to have been in too good of form coming into the tournament, but that over just kicked things off a little bit, I think, for Aaron Finch. And from that point, it was very difficult for Sri Lanka to stop them. So, bowling wise, options wise, no disrespect to Akila Dhananjay, but he hasn't had the best of times coming into the tournament. So, I think Sri Lanka made the right choice by going with their five best bowlers. It would have been interesting to see if there was a guy like maybe Praveen Jayavikrama in the squad, whether there would have been a change in personnel at that point.
Well, very interesting thought there. Yes, I think, like you mentioned, Sri Lanka did try and use the best available resources, given that that's the best that they had in the squad. Megan, now Australia game, I thought was in the Super 12s. Uh, the only game that Sri Lanka did look like they did not have a chance, like we mentioned earlier. But the other two games, the English game and also the South Africa game, Sri Lanka came very, very close. England were not pushed as much as we did in the Super 12s or before. But the South Africa game. Let's talk a little more about the South Africa game, because there were a lot of opinions that were around social media about Lahuru Kamara not being able to defend that 16 runs in that final over. It's not the first time a bowler has given away 16 runs in the final over, and Lahiri Kumar up to that point had bowled 3 overs for 17 runs. Where did it go wrong for Lahiru in that final over? And if you were the captain, would you have still gone for Lahiru Kumar in that final over, Vegan?
Yeah, I think it was the length. It was the length that went wrong for Lahiru Kumar in that final over, and I certainly do think that I would have also gone with Lahiru Kumar for sure. Like, you have a fast bowler who can hit uh, speeds of over 145, and he has bowled 3 for 17 so far, so obviously him. And I think it's the length that went wrong for Lair Kumar Sudarshan. One ball that he bounced short, it was a single which Jason Roy, David Miller struggled and got away for a single. Like, he just tried and nipped it around his hip. So I think he should have gone short on that surface. And even just before that over, about couple of overs before, I think if I was not wrong, it's the 17th over. The commentators did an analyzing where they showed how the short ball in that wicket skids through, and even the just shot could hit the stumps. It won't bounce over the stump, and it skids through the surface quicker. So I think we did bowl in that length very well throughout the game, and for whatever reason we opted to go full after that. So I think that's where they lost the game, and not just him, even Chamira. I think actually the game's momentum changed when Rabada hit that six over Chamira's over. So I think that is also by trying to go into the block hole, trying to go full, because you know. It's okay to try going full, and obviously that's the theory that fast bowlers are taught. Go to the block hole, go hit hard the yorker. But if it is not working, if one ball is out of your length, maybe you should try and stick to what works better in that surface. That's about situational awareness, I think. Also someone should have passed that message. How this surface is working today. It's working for short ball more than the length or the full length deliveries. They didn't try wide Yorkers, and of course, as I mentioned, they did not try the short one. That's where I think Lair Kumara went wrong. As we maybe had a chat before the show off camera, that when he was hit that first six, he was trying to go as hard as he can at the stumps and try and pick the wicket. Probably he lost his patience, so his nerves took over him. So I think that's where Lair Kumar went wrong. And also another point tactically where they kind of lost it is trying to target that longer boundary, trying to save it and bowling into the wickets straight at the body. I think for people like David Miller, and of course for a lot of people in T20 cricket, ropes doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how far it is. 80 meters is nothing. They had 76 in that, and 76 was nothing for David Miller. He could hit it to the road. So I think that's where we went wrong. I mean, they were kind of blinded by that longer side, shorter side story. They could have still tried the off stump because it had a good 60 meters on the offside, and I think that was also going to be tough. If we bowl right and if we execute a wide yorker right, or try and went short. But bowling at length into the body, I think you can't stop a batsman clearing the ropes. That's where we went wrong.
There's a thing from your country that I'm totally hooked on, and I am not talking about your tea.
Lanka tiles, designed for you, desired by the world.
Estelle, we spoke about the negatives now. But there were many positives and many players who did really put their hand up and excelled in their first World T20 Championship. And one of them was Mahesh Theekshana. He was an absolute revelation for Sri Lanka. He was effective in the power play. He was effective in the middle overs as well. How would you sum up Mahesh Theekshana's performance at the World T20?
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because I think coming into the tournament, my expectation at least from him was that he would do really well against the associate teams that we face because they don't get to face that type of mystery spin very often. And true to form, he did take a lot of wickets in the first half of the tournament, the first round. Come to the Super 12, we know that he didn't get a single wicket in the 5 games that we played. But I think to look beyond the stats per se, although he didn't pick up wickets, we have to understand that uh, it's good to note that I think I saw somewhere that he bowled nearly 40% of his overs in the power play. And that was a massive thing. That is a massive role that he had to play for Sri Lanka, and one that he did consistently well. The other is that he finishes the tournament with an economy of less than 6. It's 5.4, if I'm not mistaken. So that is, I think, phenomenal in a tournament where uh, players have gone after the bowling, where we've had guys go after uh, spinners in particular in the power play. For a 21-year-old coming into his very first uh, world tournament, made his debut 1 month ago, right? I mean, he looks like a seasoned campaigner, but he's literally made his international debut one month ago. So I think all positives for Sri Lanka, and he will have to work hard, of course, continue to work hard on his variations and trying to stay abreast of T20 cricket. As you know, things keep changing, players get more depth at facing certain other players. So I think the key for him going forward will be to adapt and to keep improving, because you cannot depend on mystery alone for success, particularly in this era when there is so much of analysis. I think when he made his debut against South Africa, within an hour or so, people on social media had already kind of given tips on how you can pick him. So that's the kind of environment that he's going to have to face. So he'll he'll need to be proactive himself and uh, stay abreast of what is happening. But overall, I think you can't fault him. He's done everything possible. He's played a key role. Particularly, I think the Sri Lankan bowling, uh, it succeeded so well because everyone in that bowling lineup was able to accomplish their roles or do their roles well. So although Mahesh didn't pick up wickets, he was able to bowl with a good economy rate during that power play, and therefore put some pressure on the batsman, which enabled the guy on the other side to take wickets. So overall, I think he should be really happy and proud of his performance. Hopefully, better things to come, and we see more growth from him as well.
Yeah,
Well,
Darshana,
absolutely.
just to add on it, sorry, Darshana, just to add on it, I think my Tikshana playing is this, mystery spinner role is kind of the thing which it deceives everyone with. I think for me, what I have seen of my Tikshana over the years is he's more of a bowler who is like the one who does not pick wickets but keeps things tight. Someone like Washington Sundar, that's his role, and I think that has been really well deceived probably with this mystery spin. He's not the wicket taker for me, after what I've seen from my Tikshana. People expected him to be the wicket taker. People expected him to be more among these wickets and the mystery around him and all those things. But I don't think really he has to rely on that carom ball or the googly or anything, because his lines are so good. And just like ST mentioned, he has managed to get away with under 5 runs and over throughout the tournament, and that's phenomenal for a debutant, especially, and just for a 21-year-old. And I think that is my Dictioner's role, and I think he's gifted for it. He can just keep things tight on one end, and that I think is priceless in T20 cricket. So that is why he's in demand around, and that is why he's called upon for so many tournaments even before his T20 debut. He played in T10 leagues and all those things, because he's able to deliver that stability for a team, and especially bowl in that power play. I think he's a specialist of that and not picking wickets, and I think that he's doing really well.
Well, very, very interesting point there, Megan. Yes, I think we do agree with you on that because Mahesh Dikshana's control and also him being very disciplined when he bowls is why he was so economical as well. Now, from Mahesh Dikshana to the pace duo that we have, Dushman Tamir and Lahiru Kumar. How exciting is that? These two are young and both of them bowl north of 145 kilometers per hour. can't remember the last time Sri Lanka had a duo who could bowl in that pace consistently. Sri Lanka did have bowlers who did notch up balls once in a while over 145, but these two can bowl over 145 consistently. How exciting is that?
I mean, that is like watching 2007 Malinga and Dila Fernando were from Eden. It was one of the most successful era for Sri Lanka, and I think whenever a team is successful, they've had such bowlers, such expected players, and I think Sri Lanka is going through some kind of a phase like that. Although we've not been able to uh, turn results our way, but definitely headed towards good direction, Sudarshan, and those two are very exciting, aren't they? They're really quick and bowling over 150 clicks. And when did we last see Sri Lanka, as you mentioned? When did we last see batsmen coming into the crease and against Sri Lanka struggling like that? It's really really happy to see those two boys bowls at such speed, and especially it's not just about the pace. That is what's get everyone excited about. Shamira bowling his power play overs. He's like been the best in the power play throughout the year, not just in the World Cup. So I think these two, we've seen their worst, and we've seen how they struggled in the past, and now that they have worked hard for themselves and come back into the side and leading the team in such fashion, that is really really heartening as a fan to see these two boys bowl so well, and only good stuff may come to their way.
Very encouraging, isn't it? Two youngsters bowling so fast and accuracy coming in as well. And talking about two youngsters, Estelle, Pathum Nissanka and Charith Asalanka has been absolutely phenomenal for Sri Lanka. With the bet, Asalanka only got 6 innings at the World T20I, but then he impressed nevertheless. Pathum Nissanka looked like the most senior partner when it comes to opening the batting for Sri Lanka. His stability and especially yesterday's game against West Indies, the way he could change gears did really excite people, because he did look like one of those batsmen who was playing out the first half of his innings to settle down, and then suddenly when he wanted to, he could change gears and go for all those uncanny shots. Very exciting prospects. What were your thoughts on these two batsmen?
Yeah, of course. What is interesting is I think if you look at the Sri Lankan squad coming into the tournament, you'd probably have said those two are the most unlikely heroes because uh, neither one of them was particularly, earmarked to be a good T20 prospect or, someone who we were looking forward to seeing as a good T20 prospect, like, say, Bhanuka Rajapaksa, who also did really well during the tournament. But I think particularly Charit Asalanka has been impressive because of the way he's played in that power play. I think in all games that he's played, he's had to come in the top six, in the first 6 overs, and he's played attacking cricket. And I think that is what we need to see in modern day T20 cricket, that intent. And the same goes for Pathum Nissanka. I think although his strike rate may not that reflect how well he played, I think in even the game against South Africa, what was good to see was throughout his innings, he wasn't playing like he wanted to bat the 20 overs. He was going for his shots. He was trying to make something happen out there. And that is, I think, the intent. Uh, I recall a couple of months ago when we toured uh, England, the theme that Sri Lanka wanted to put out, the modus operandi, was basically play fearless cricket. And although we didn't see it then, we definitely saw it, particularly in these two batters when it came to the World Cup, because they attacked the ball. They knew their matchups well. I think Charita Salanka seems to be a player who really has a good head on his shoulders, and it's very easy now, in retrospect, to see why he was, so highly rated coming in as an former under 19s captain. It's easy to see why now because he seems to have a good head on his shoulders. He's able to work out what the best options for him are. And what's good to see also is that, like you mentioned, the ability or the being able to change gears, and that is what is think important in T20 cricket now as a batsman. You look at someone like Joss Butler in that game against Sri Lanka, how he went from, a strike rate of less than 100 to then basically exploding during that last 10 or last 5 overs. That is what is needed from a batsman. I think we are no longer in the stage where you can have a guy in your team batting at less than a run a ball throughout 20 overs, because that's going to have a massive impact on the players around him. So I think that was what was encouraging and good to see. The intent from both batters was always to play aggressive cricket, whether it's running between the wickets or playing their shots or using the matchups. So again, not something we expected to see from those two in particular, but it's really good to see, and hopefully uh, it continues, particularly in the coming year.
A hero that Sri Lanka banked on, and hero that Sri Lanka had a lot of hope on was Wanidhu Hasranka, number one ranked T20I bowler in the world, considers himself a batting all-rounder. That's a different topic altogether. Sharmeegan, Wanidhu Hasranka has been absolutely brilliant because he's been the live wire of the team. When he comes on to bowling, you can see his attacking intent, and also when it comes to batting, he's one of those players who can really change a game. If Sri Lanka had made at least the semi-finals, do you think he would have been the player of the tournament of this World Cup?
Undoubtedly, Sudarshan, undoubtedly. Uh, well, I'd back him in him telling that he's a batting all rounder, because I've seen him throughout his school career. I've seen him in his Sri Lanka 19. So I've spoke of this earlier also. He is a batting all rounder for me. He could bat really more, way better than whatever he is batting right now. We are just seeing the glimpse of it every other innings, one in once. But one of the could be consistently doing that once and for all. But coming back to his bowling, I think what Vanidhu has brought to Sri Lankan team is that whenever we go to play India, whenever we go to play West Indies, South Africa, we have Rabada, we have Pollard, we have Virat Kohli, that kind of superstar characters which we really have to kind of getting intimidated, or that thing that strikes before even the team comes into the game. And I think Vanidhu Asaranga has brought such a character to Sri Lanka. When they are gonna come to Sri Lanka, when every team from now on who is gonna play Sri Lanka, they are gonna play Vanidhu Asaranga also. They are gonna be like Vanidhu Asaranga. That superstar character, that kind of a thing. And I think that does I mean that goes a long way about Sri Lanka's confidence as a team. The entire team rallies around him, and he's like that bond which keeps that entire team striving forward. Because and being the world number one bowler, we saw it last time happen when Vajanta Mendes was number one in 2011, and it's almost a decade later that we've seen someone top the tables. And I think the two batters and also the seamers, they are all on their way, making their way up this ICC rankings and showing the world what they can. And Vanidhu Asaranga was like that trendsetter for all of them, and I think that is what he brings in as a player and as a superstar, of course.
Absolutely. I think, like you mentioned, Sri Lanka did have Kumar Sangakkara, Sri Lanka did have Mahela Jayawardene and Tilakaratne Dilshan. Now we have Wanidhu Hasaranga, which is brilliant and phenomenal for Sri Lanka because we can build on from there. Estelle, before the World Cup started, if we asked you to name the team, name the 11 for Sri Lanka, I think, and if the three of us name the Sri Lankan team, we would have had two players who all three of us could agree on and say, okay, they will definitely make the team. But now, after the World Cup, Sri Lanka may maybe have about 6 to 7 players who they can treat as the core. How brilliant and important is that for the future of Sri Lankan cricket?
Yeah, I think what's great about it, Sudarshana, is that many of them are just starting out. So if you take someone like Charit Asalanka, he's in his first year of international cricket, and already he's made an impact. That's not something that we've seen in the last 5 years. Sri Lanka have rotated around a lot of players. Uh, Players have come in and left, performed well, sometimes got injured and had to take some time off. all those things have come into play. But what's great about it here, and what gives, I think, a lot of people hope in not only Sri Lanka, but I think the brand of cricket they played at this World Cup also excited a lot of people overseas. Um, I think if you've gone on social media, a lot of teams were excited to watch the way Sri Lanka would play because, like you said, we've got those few players who who can potentially for the next few years create that core in the Sri Lankan team. So that's what's most exciting. I think uh, I am cautiously optimistic that they'll be able to continue in the coming year as well. But we also have to work towards. I'm not sure whether it was Darren Sammy who said that, but uh, there was a quote some time ago from a West Indian player saying that they didn't lose. And I think Sri Lanka need to adopt something of that kind of attitude. Yes, we did really well during this tournament. We performed above expectations, but that should not be the story at the next tournament. It shouldn't be the case where we come back in Australia and maybe beat a couple of teams and get knocked out and then say, okay, we performed above expectations. We need to keep growing. We need to keep building so that we are not punching above our weight, so that we are on a competitive level with the other big teams around the world. So I think that is the key, or that is what the end goal should be. We should be happy and proud about what's been achieved so far, but we shouldn't be satisfied with that. We want to compete, yes, but we want to win as well. That needs to be the attitude. And I think, like you said, with that core set of players, that is certainly achievable. But there's a lot of work still to be done, I think, in the coming 12 months, particularly with the eyes on the next World Cup.
Perfect. So with that, I think we've come to the close of around the wickets. This episode, I think, was a little bit of a lengthy one, and but when Sri Lanka is doing terrifically well, if we are not going to spend a little more time talking cricket, when are we going to do that? Isn't it? And thank you so much to Estelle and Megan for joining us for this chat. And we really do hope you enjoyed our chat as well. Do comment on the comment section and tell us on what you thought about of our chat about the T20 World Cup, and also let us know what you would like us to talk about in the coming episodes as well. And with that, I'm Sudarshan Repeat signing off for ThePapare.com. Do join us next week as well on Around the Wickets.
අපේ කොල්ලන්ට ලංකාවේ අපේ ජාතික පැතුම් එක් කරන ඩයලොග්.
Stay on the ball with the Papare Sports News Alerts. Don't miss out on what's happening in the world of sport. Type sports and send to 678 to register. 30 rupees per month. Conditions apply.